It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, July 29th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is starting to get a little concerned about that cap crunch with the Owen Tippett signing.
Yeah, it's real now.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You'll keep up to date on all our episodes and Flyers news. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. On today's show, we are going to be talking about the Owen Tippett contract. We are going to talk about the Rocky Thompson hire as being official. Then we're going to talk about Bryce Brodzinski and do a prospect profile there and get to a few of your mailbag questions. So lots to get to today. Locked On Flyers is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you are listening right now. So hit that subscribe button. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube. So check us out over there as well. All right, Russ. So 2 weeks later, we get official word from the Flyers that Rocky Thompson is officially hired as an assistant coach for John Tortorella's staff. It is understood that he will run the power play and the offensive side of things. And we did talk about him a couple of weeks ago when the rumor was posted. I think it was Elliot Friedman who had said that he was the guy. And he has an interesting history with the San Jose Sharks as an assistant coach. He was with the Chicago Wolves in the AHL before that, but had some real big success in the AHL.
Yeah, there's no question he had success, and he's well liked for the most part. Got into a little issue because of what he says are his health reasons that he couldn't get vaccinated. Okay, you hope that somehow resolves itself, because otherwise I don't know how he's going to travel to Canada to play, but we'll worry about that down the road. But the only thing I question here is, where is on his resume, where does it say he is a power play specialist?
Yeah, that is the one missing part of it. I mean, obviously, as an AHL coach, you do a lot more than you would in the
Sure.
NHL. It's more specialized. And so he can run a power play. Again, when this news first came out, I had talked to somebody who covers the Sharks, and they said that he was pretty flexible and could really run anything you asked him to. But at that time, he was on the PK and D side of things in his last season with San Jose, which was 2 seasons ago at this point, because, like you said, with the vaccination issues, he couldn't work in the NHL last season. But yeah, I think it is a good question mark to have. I do think that one thing that seems to be the case with John Tortorella, and like when we talked to Allison Lucan about things, that he is a guy who is a good communicator, right? And so the combination of Brad Shaw, who, according to Allison, is a real good X's and O's guy, and Rocky Thompson, who's a good communicator, that seems to be a good balance of assistant coaches to have.
Okay, understand all that, but understand me having PTSD from the all former coaches, assistants that Elaine Vigneault had set up, and that became pretty dysfunctional after a while. And so again, if I'm hiring a guy like this, I would like to be able to point to something and say, hey, Rachel, look, even in the AHL, he had the 6th best power play. I've got nothing to point to here.
I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm trying to find the logic in this hire and this combination here. And, who knows? Maybe it'll turn out. I think it's
It could be
different
good.
than,
I mean, I'm just giving
yeah,
you, like, if I'm out in the business world and I'm hiring somebody and I'm hiring them for a specific thing, it's kind of like I'm hiring the way I see this is kind of like I'm hiring this guy that I like. We all vibe together. We're all good coaches. You're going to run the power play, and since you've been on teams that have had power plays and with some success, we're going to let you do it. But I'm looking for a guy that's been running a power play for 3 or 4 years that could point to, hey, this guy has had a real formula for success there. I can't do that right now. So right now I'm hoping.
absolutely. Totally understand. I do think it's different than the Vigneault situation just because those were all 3 former head coaches, and Bradshaw and Rocky Thompson have not been head coaches.
No, and I'm not
Then
dragging Bradshaw into this. I mean,
Okay.
I totally get his hire. I do.
All right. Moving over to the Owen Tippett signing. This was breaking news this morning where he signed a 2-year deal for 1.5 per year. And I just want to say that I went back to my cap spreadsheet and my lines document, and I had penciled in 1.5 for Owen Tippett. So I'm feeling pretty good about my predictive self on this front.
No, and you should. I mean, and you shouldn't be paying him any more than that. Honestly, he's got a lot to prove, and he's got just enough flash to get that 1.5. But now, if he wants to get that next contract, he's got to start scoring.
Exactly. And I do think it's a little bit of an overpay. I just thought that the Flyers would overpay him. I think probably 1 to 1.2 was the right number for him.
Right. Yeah, 1.2 would have been ideal. Yes.
Yeah, but just knowing the Flyers and a guy like this, 1.5 seemed like where they would end up. And lo and behold, that's where he was. And yeah, I think that he's going to have to step up his game quite a bit this upcoming season. We've talked about him having to improve his shot a lot with the accuracy, that he takes plenty of shots, and it's a good quality shot in terms
It's
of
release and not thinking
Yeah,
about it and getting it on
yeah,
net. It's that
exactly.
combination. And you know what? Here's the difference. Mike Yeo had all the time in the world because Mike Yeo kind of knew that he couldn't really do anything wrong. He could only do something right if things worked out. This is John Tortorella. I don't know if we go through last season and the struggles Owen Tippett had, I don't know how long he would stay on the top power play, honestly.
I don't either. I think he'll start out on the second unit for sure.
Probably.
And then we'll see what happens from there. Especially, I think it'll depend a lot on what happens on the defensive side of things and this new power play setup. If they decide to go their second unit with 2D or not, how that all plays out. But I certainly expect Tippett to be a big part of whatever power play they're putting together for this upcoming season. It does get us finally to the point where the Flyers are officially over the cap. Without
you knew we'd get there, Rachel. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah, without a Ryan Ellis LTIR. Right. So It seems like he's going to be LTIR, but we don't know that for sure. And there's still a couple of RFAs left to sign, including the arbitration for Zach McEwen.
Well, think about it. If he wasn't going to be LTIR'd, and I don't know the number today, you could tell me if you know it. And based on these future signings, there would be no way to back out when Ryan Ellis's salary hit the books. Like, they would have to do something drastic quickly, and I don't think they're set up for that. So I think, it's pretty telling.
It is. And I also don't know what's going to happen with Joel Farabee, if they're going to start him LTIR for the season as well, or he's just going to be on the injured list. It'll depend on his recovery. So there's a little bit of flexibility there, I think, that we just don't know about yet, but it's certainly starting to feel a little bit tighter in the financial world for the Flyers.
No, it is. And much like when Ron Hextall first took over and there were like daily cap movements of players, paper-wise and otherwise, I think they might be doing that again this year.
Yep, it seems like it. Well, we'll see what happens with the other RFAs and see what this cap crunch looks like as we get closer to the season with some injury status as well. We are going to talk about Bryce Brodzinski, who was at Dev Camp over the last week and really stood out a little bit. So we thought we'd dig deeper into his prospects coming up next. But first, we're going to hear about Built Bar.
If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. It's delicious. Indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are 160 calories and there are a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It'll be perfect. It'll be a perfect treat. Or you could find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. What's great about Built is that all the bars are made of collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15.
All right, Bryce Brodzinski. He is a right wing, currently unsigned, but was drafted in 2019 in the 7th round, 196th overall, and has spent the last 3 years at the University of Minnesota. And, has had a decently successful career there. This past season in 39 games, 12 goals, 14 assists for 26 points. We did talk about him a little bit when we were discussing the Frozen Four tournament this year. Minnesota had made it to the semifinals. They lost to Minnesota State there. But I think that, he has taken a leadership role at Minnesota. And he is, I think, at least for me, outplayed expectations as a 7th round draft pick.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you have him sort of pegged as a 4th line guy, which is fine. You always have to get every spot filled on your roster, so there's nothing wrong with that. As a right wing, he knows how to play off the boards. He tracks the puck very well. He's always engaged. He engages physically. There's things that I like about him where he works really hard in the dirty areas. He will go to the net. He will screen the goalie. He'll do those little things. He's a smart player on the ice. He's done a lot with his edge work. So now, even though that's something I noticed in this camp. So I felt like his maneuverability was better. And, you're seeing the goal total rise in college because he's gotten stronger and probably because of that skating improving. So these are things that are right on track for the Flyers. And, he'll go through a senior year at Minnesota. And then, you hope that the Flyers sign him and he wants to sign with the Flyers because I think he is a good developmental guy to have. You have him, you put him in Lehigh. Lehigh needs players like this. You can have him there for a couple years. No offense to like a Max Willman, but this would be like a guy with maybe a little bit more ability than a Max Willman as far as to score a little bit as far as doing those other things. So that's something where, the Flyers are going to need that. And you want to, have some sandpaper guys, and he can provide that too. So I think he has outkicked his coverage right now.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. I think having him in Lehigh Valley would be a good thing for that team overall. I think that having a guy who's hungry like that is always a positive thing and could really slot in. I don't know if you'd put him on the first line, although they tend to rotate guys through that anyway. But,
yeah, he could be first, second. He could play those things in the AHL for sure. Probably second line for the AHL.
Yeah, and that's where I like the flexibility, right? Where you feel like you can give him a couple different roles to play and see where he fits best, see what player combinations work best. And you're not risking very much by giving him those opportunities at all because he's the kind of guy that is going to step up to the challenge again because he is exceeding expectations, but he comes from that really strong background at University of Minnesota and understands the discipline and the physicality. And, he is older. He's 21. So he's a little bit more grown into himself. He's 6
Yep.
feet, I think,
Yep. Yeah.
right
Yeah.
about.
Over
So
200 pounds. Yep.
yeah, so he's not like massive, but he's big enough that I think he can use his physicality to his
Mhm.
advantage. And I just really like that for Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, and then, and his brother broke through with the Rangers, so he's got something to kind of work off
Mhm.
of, and that's good. Maybe he has a little bit more offensive potential than his brother. I'm not saying he's going to be a big time scorer. Don't get it twisted. But I'm just saying because of what he does and where he does it, there is a possibility for goals. Certainly at Lehigh, and that's they always need goals.
So what stood out to you about his play at development camp?
Yeah, it was definitely his skating and his edge work, and I felt like his stick drills were really good. Those were the three things that really stood out for me. And again, like you said, he's a little bit older, so compared to some of the others, maybe that's a reason. But even in the shooting drills, his shot was pretty fluent, a little bit more than I remembered it being from a year ago. So there's just this overall good development that seems to have happened here at the age of 21. Like that's not, a big surprise. So I think we're seeing him, reach a certain talent level here now, and getting through a development camp at this time should mean a big upcoming season for him.
I think so too. And the thing is, though, he has to get signed in order to play with Lehigh Valley. And
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I certainly would have him signed. Hopefully that is the deal. But has he definitely turned pro, or can he go back to Minnesota?
I'm not sure. I think he can go back to
I think he can go
Minnesota.
back. So even if he went back, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I think I personally would prefer if he signed and spent this next year with Lehigh Valley. But
Mhm.
at the same time, I mean, it's his life. Obviously, he can do what he wants. He may
It's
feel
also a
like,
cap thing too. Maybe the cap is
yeah,
not going to allow it.
yeah, it's just that there's a greater chance of him walking, which in the grand scheme of things is not the biggest deal in the world
No,
for a guy like him,
but
for
you
him
kind
to
of want
go.
guys like this around. Like you
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
You need some of these kinds of guys, and I feel like he's a good team guy.
Right. And that's where I land. And that's why I would want to sign him and stick him in Lehigh Valley, because you
Yeah.
want to ensure that he is a guy that will stick. Right.
Hmm.
And that even if he's like a Lehigh Valley player for the next 3 years and maybe gets a shot, that's okay with me too. I think that those kinds of players are important.
Yeah, they are important. So let's hope that it works out for him one way or the other. But we wanted to at least point out his good play, and right now he's still property of the Flyers. So
Right. And like you said, his brother Johnny is in the Rangers organization,
yeah,
has spent some time with the Rangers and also in the AHL for their team there as well. I always love seeing brothers play up against each
me too.
other in
Oh
these
yeah, it's always
games.
fun.
So I think we had the Waterspoons up against each other
Yep.
for a little bit at the AHL level. And
It's hell for the parents, though. It's
it
not easy
is.
for them.
Yeah. And I think we had the Kashas one day
Mhm.
too with Andre and David. So
And the Van
I,
Riemsdykes, of course.
of
And
course, yeah, they're solidly at the NHL level. So
yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, I always love that. But again, really hope that the Flyers figure out a way to fit Bryce Brodzinski into the contract situation and get him some time in Lehigh Valley.
It'd be great. I'd like to see that.
All right, we will be hitting the mailbag coming up next. All right, Russ, before we get into mailbag questions, just want to give a quick best wishes to Bobby Ryan. Obviously, with the news out there that he had a relapse and was arrested, has said that he feels terrible about it. Of course, recovery is a long process
Yep.
and has many pitfalls, and we just want to send our best wishes out to him.
Yeah, we wish him well.
All right, our mailbag starts with a question from Craig. He noticed that the Flyers did not have Jay O'Brien at Dev Camp. What's going to happen with him? Is he a wasted draft pick?
Well, for as long as you're in the college system, I think you could only go to one dev camp and you have to go on your own dime. So I think that's the main reason why. And since he is still in college, he went already. I think he was at one before. Pretty
He
sure.
was, and he also is injured. He had hip surgery
Right.
this
So there's that too.
season, and it seems like he's going to be ready for college this fall for his next
For BU,
season
yeah.
for BU. So hopefully we'll get to see him play there to see what his progress has been and how that recovery is going. But I don't think we can call it a wasted draft pick quite yet, but there's certainly some risk involved at this point.
It's 50-50. I mean, I'm not going to tell you. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you it's all going to work out and it's going to be great. I think it's a 50-50 deal right now.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next question. We've been getting this a lot, actually, from many people over on YouTube with wanting the Flyers to make additional moves, and they have said they are done. So I guess the question is, and this comes from many people, like I said, are the Flyers really done, or are they just saying they're done?
No, they're done. I think they were done when they told us they were done, and nobody wanted to accept that. But I think we have to start to accept the fact that they're done. Yeah, they might invite some people into training camp, but I think they're done until that.
I think so too. I think we have to believe them, and especially because, again, there are some additional RFAs to be signed. There's this cap situation. They could be making trades. Like, we have talked about that.
Yeah, you can make a trade dollar for dollar. You can.
Mm-hmm. They could. And, we've made some suggestions to them over the past couple of weeks about trades that could work, but it just seems like that's not something they're interested in right now, that this is the roster that they want. It's very frustrating, I think, for a lot of people. And we certainly...
You could see it's in between. You could see it's like not your typical rebuild roster where you're devoid of a lot of talent, and then it's not your typical playoff roster where you have a lot of talent. It's just kind of in that mushy middle, and that's why that you can improve this team. It wouldn't be hard.
Exactly. So again, get the frustration, but it seems like they are actually done. All right, next question. What are the expectations for Sean Couturier going into the season, and when do we expect him back at 100%?
Well, I'm expecting him at 100% to start the season. My expectations would be 1C, 70 points.
I think that's a pretty high threshold for points, but I don't think it's unreasonable either. I think it's hard to imagine a Flyers player at this point, given how last year went, getting to that threshold. But at the same time, if he's your 1C and he's at 100%, which I agree he should be at 100% coming into next season, 70 points sounds absolutely reasonable to me.
I'll say it like this.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not 100% and he ends up with like 50 points, then this is going to be a truly abysmal season, like even worse than we thought.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think that there's going to be a lot on his shoulders this season. I think,
but he gets paid a lot. Like, this is,
mm-hmm.
you have to live up to your paycheck sometimes.
Yeah, and especially given that there are pretty good odds he'll get the C as well. I think he's going to really have to go that extra mile and hit a level that we would have expected from him this past season had the injury not been there. I think, having him as really the lead two-way center for this team is what's important. I think also, obviously, it's going to depend on what Kevin Hayes does as well in terms of what his usage ends up being. But for Coots, this is a big, big year for him.
Yeah, if you want the Flyers to be hard to play against, he's the first guy you look at. Like, he has to be hard to play against.
Exactly. All right, last question. With Owen Tippett signing, how many goals will we expect from him this year?
All right, I am going to go between 12 and 17. That's my range.
Yeah, I was going to say 15 as well. And I think depending on who his line mates are, if they have that Morgan Frost or Noah Cates combo where they seem to be working well together, I think he could have a lot more assists than we would have expected as well,
Right.
because I think they're going to have some really dynamic passing between them if the end of this past season is any indication. But I
Hmm.
think as far as goals, I would expect around 15, and I would expect if he gets the ice time, more of them to be on the power play than at even strength.
Right. No, I agree with that.
All right. That will do it for the mailbag today. Wrapping up with our Flyers / gritty thing of the week. The Flyers had their community caravan over the past several weeks, hitting all sorts of locations. They wound up with Flyers Community Day, I think, at Voorhees at the training center. And so they had a big celebration with Tony DeAngelo and Joel Farabee
Hmm.
and Patrick Brown. Gritty was there as well with all the fans. They had different activities and autograph signings as well. So Flyers put out a compilation of the events from that day, which looked like a lot of fun. And despite, some of the feelings surrounding the team, I think people still had a good time, and it seemed like at least Tony DeAngelo was kind of soaking in the Flyers fandom for the first
Hmm.
time. So
Yeah.
that's good
I
to
mean, there's
see.
no reason to, if you're a fan, to not have a good time. Still doesn't mean you can't have a discerning eye when it comes to what your expectations are for the team. Those are two different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's always good to get to meet players
Yeah.
one-on-one and get those autographs, and I love all of that. So I am glad they were able to do that again this summer, and hopefully we'll see more of that with community activities heading into the season, especially around training camp.
Yeah, it'll be good.
All right, that will do it for today's show. We will be back again on Monday. We'll have the latest Flyers news, our nemesis of the week, and we just had a mailbag. So if you want your question answered in our next mailbag, send in your questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or pop a comment over on YouTube as well. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
You made us your first listen today. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all year long. You can stay up to date on everything in the hockey world with Locked On NHL, your daily NHL podcast. I'm on the Friday show, and on today's show, we talked about some rule changes in the NHL that we'd like to see. So check that out as well. Have a good weekend, everyone.